Today's topic is the realities of self-publishing. If you've got 5 minutes, I've got 5 tips to help you keep it real before you embark on the self-publishing journey. Okay, so you've written a book, you've rewritten the book, you've edited the book, you've had a few other people read that book for you, and now you have this manuscript that needs to go out into the world. What's next? Well, until the dawn of digital publishing at the very beginning of this century, really, you had 2 choices. You could get on the merry-go-round of traditional publishing, submission, rejection, until you found someone, possibly, who would publish your book. This was a very time-consuming process. I speak from experience, having published a number of books before the dawn of digital publishing and certainly through the traditional channels. Or you could decide to vanity publish. A vanity publisher was a publisher who would, for a very exorbitant price, take your manuscript from you, sometimes edit it, always provide you with a cover, print that book, bind that book, and send copies to you. That's it. That was vanity publishing. And then it was up to you to sell those books in that cardboard box that arrived at your front door the best way that you could. There were no online distribution channels. It was difficult to get it into bookstores anywhere, and vanity publishing had kind of a whiff of ickiness to it that people weren't too happy about, and still aren't. Things have changed. These days, you can do it yourself, and you can gain wide distribution through online sources like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo. You can get your book into all of those large online bookstores. Whether or not they sell, that's another point. That's a story for another day. But the point is that you can do it yourself. And in this process of self-publishing, you can pay a little, you can pay nothing, or you can pay a great deal to have that published. But before you press that button, publish, on Amazon or one of the other services, I've got a few tips for you to help you keep it real in the beginning. Now, just so you know, as I mentioned, I slogged through the traditional publishing process quite a number of times in my 35-year career and have published through traditional publishers at least a half a dozen times, probably more, I haven't counted lately. But sometime in the last decade, I decided I wanted to take over some control and do some more of it myself. And so I've gained quite a bit of experience in self-publishing through about 10 books. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I learned over the process and getting better and better as time went on. So let's begin by making sure we're all talking about the same thing. When I say the word self-publishing, this is what I mean. Self-publishing is the act of writer-controlled publishing. This means that writers publish their own work without going through the vetting process of a third party, aka a traditional publisher. It also means that the author takes full responsibility financially for every aspect of that book, from editing to proofreading to publishing to marketing. All of that is on you, the writer. So that's what self-publishing is all about. There are a lot of pitfalls along the way, and here are my 5 tips for you to help you keep it real, and maybe you can avoid some of those pitfalls. Tip number 1. This is an overall one. Begin by managing your expectations. Everyone who writes a book for publication thinks that that book has the potential to become a bestseller. Everyone who thinks that is wrong. Not every book has the potential to become a bestseller, and the odds are against you. The average number of books that a self-published author sells is 250. 250, and that's the average. We've all heard stories about the one who sold 1 million copies. That means that many, many people are selling 2 copies or 3 copies or no copies, but the average is 250. The reality here is that you're not going to become a famous writer. It could happen, but the odds against it are astronomical. Tip number 2 to keep it real. You probably don't write as well as you think you do. And I'm not the only one who says this, and it is true of all of us. Most writers do not write as well as they think they do. No matter how many books they've published or how many short stories they've published or how many times they've written an article for a newspaper, they simply don't write as well as they think they do. My favorite writing guru, William Zinsser, who wrote on writing well, that I've mentioned a number of times before, has said this very eloquently and has a whole chapter in his book devoted to it. I suggest you read that. Tip number 3, you can publish a book without spending a single cent. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Quality matters. So, unless you think you are an extraordinary writer, you have marvelous self-editing skills, you're a talented graphic designer to create the interior of a book and a cover, and you understand what book covers are supposed to look like and how they are supposed to be, and you can create one that doesn't look amateurish. Unless all of those things are true, unless you hire a professional to do some of those things or all of those things along the way, your book is going to look amateurish. Tip number 4, it's easy to follow the directions and publish your book, but it's damn hard to get all the steps right. If you want a quality product, you have to do this well. And there's a steep learning curve here. So you need to get yourself ready. You also need to be prepared for the fact that it takes some time to get a book from your word processing program into a format that is suitable for presentation to the world. Tip number 5, most of the writers that you'll encounter in online groups for writers, particularly Facebook, for example, are not professional writers. Now, it's very tempting, I know that. I know it's very tempting to go online and simply ask questions of people who have done it before. How do I do this and how do I do that? This is not the wisest approach for you to take when it comes to publishing your book. Many of those people have been doing the same thing over and over and never getting any better. My suggestion to you is that you find a few online professionals to assist you. And I'm not talking about things that you have to pay for. I'm talking about online blogs and resources that have really good information for you to help you through the process. And I'm going to recommend a couple of them to you to get started. The first one is Jane Friedman's blog. She's been doing this for a very long time, and if you go searching around her blog, you will find all kinds of information, accurate information, up-to-date information about self-publishing. The Alliance of Independent Authors has a self-publishing information center. I highly recommend that you go online and do a little research here first before you press publish. And another source that I like is Joanna Penn's blog, The Creative Pen. Again, she has a lot of information and has worked for years now in helping people to self-publish their books. And she has a lot of experience in doing it herself. Well, now that you're keeping it real, why don't you go ahead and get started? And good luck. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat. And maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills. 5 tips at a time.